Welcome back to the Digital Nomad World Weekly Lecture. This week, I'm very excited to have Mujtaba Saifuddin with me because I actually spoke with him about a year ago on my podcast called The School of Travels, episode 66. So if you want to hear what Muj was thinking about a year ago, go to my podcast and you can check it out. But Muj, welcome to Digital Nomad World.
Thank you, Becky. It's good to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm so great to hear how you've been doing. I want to hear the lessons you've learned from 1 year as a digital nomad. So first of all, to get started, let's hear about your background and how you got on this journey.
Sure. So I am kind of by training and by career an aerospace engineer and program manager in the aerospace arena. And as you know, it can be very location dependent. And my career was very location dependent. And I've always had the travel bug in me. And so what happened was I'd be sitting on the 91 freeway on the way to work, I'd be thinking, gosh, this sucks. This traffic sucks. And I just want to be out working on my own schedule in a cool country and not have to be where I am. So what just so happened that kind of around the time where I had the itch to change careers and lifestyle and all, I came across a company called Lojistic, and they're a shipping cost reduction company. And I found them because at the company I was at, the aerospace firm, they had a big initiative to reduce cost. So I found these guys and I thought, wow, that's a pretty cool value proposition. And they helped my company save money. So I thought, let me explore more. And it turns out that I met this guy named Rich Harkey at Lojistic, who's larger than life, really great sales guy, just an awesome human being. And so he and I became friends, and I ended up adopting Lojistic as a side hustle. And for a couple of years, started growing my little logistics side hustle, helping companies in my network save on their shipping spend while keeping my aerospace job. Fast forward 2 years of doing this as a side hustle, I got to know Luke and Jared, who are the owners of Lojistic. And of course, Rich and I got even closer, and he's like my mentor now. And I thought, you know what? They encouraged me to try something different. I thought it made sense. Took a big gamble. I left aerospace back in November of 2021 and joined them full time as a senior director of sales. And it's been a wonderful journey ever since. So get to cultivate a new skill set, which is sales, and am in a very different industry. Went from aerospace to logistic. So that's how I got to go nomadic because Lojistic is a fully remote company.
Thank you very much for sharing that because I know it's a big question a lot of potential nomads or remote workers have is like, how did you get into that in the first place? So thank you for all those details. So as you mentioned with your job at Lojistic, the work that you do as a digital nomad, it really shapes the way you live your daily life on the road. So can you tell us about how Lojistic, how it kind of factors into your life and how it has changed, if it has, over the year that you've been traveling?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So when I started off in the senior director slash sales role, it was a lot of cold calling and a lot of cold emailing. However, I'm happy to announce that they had this big vote of confidence for me, and I'm now the director of partnerships. It's a bit more strategic, and it's a bit different because now I'm courting large corporations and senior leaders in those corporations to figure out a way how our data and our technology can help enhance their business and their technology. So it's a very different kind of role. I'm not talking directly about shipping cost savings. I'm not talking about, hey, we've got shipping data. How can we help your technology, your business intelligence platform, whatever the case may be, get better? So in that new ecosystem, I do a lot more video calls that have to be a lot of my conversations are more nuanced, and I have to focus, and I need complete concentration, and it's challenging. So normally I could get by with being in a coffee shop or something in any cool city that has decent Wi-Fi. Now, because the conversations are so like, again, nuanced and high level, I can't afford to have any distractions. So I look for Airbnbs that are kind of off the beaten path, not in the heart of the city center, no loud noises, and I've got to have good Wi-Fi. It's super important. And not only fast, but it's got to be reliable because God forbid you're talking to the CFO of like SAP right? And your Wi-Fi starts to glitch and you start freezing and making those weird faces on a Zoom meeting, right? So a lot of my travel and the pace and where I go and where I stay is really dependent upon Wi-Fi, quiet accommodations, and good lighting because you don't want to look like a shadow, which sometimes happens.
Yes, yes. There's so many things to think about. I know also when we talked last year, you were on US hours. And so is that still the case?
Yeah, I'm still working California hours actually. So even though I'm in La Paz, Bolivia right now, we're 3 hours ahead. I still work California time. So the good news is I can wake up here at 7 a.m. and go out and have a nice brunch, walk around the town, get to enjoy the city, and then by 11 a.m. local time, I get to work and it's 8 a.m. over there in California.
Ah, sounds like you found a bit of a hack after overtime.
Right. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Do you think you will be able to travel to Asia or Europe
Great
with this
question.
job?
And I've broached the topic to my leadership, and Jared, who's my boss, is very much into fitness and health and wellness. In fact, a big part of our culture at Logistic is personal improvement and health and well-being. And his only concern is, look, you go wherever you want, Muj, but just remember that your circadian rhythm will change. If you've got to work all night and then you sleep in the day. So he's very much like, dude, do what makes you happy, go wherever you want, but just be aware that there are psychological and or physiological impacts to being in these other parts of the world when you need to work California hours. So I kind of took that pretty seriously, that feedback, and I think he's right. So I feel like I might just do like Portugal or maybe Pakistan for a short, like 2 week or 1 month stint maximum. But I'll be coming back home and working, um, you know, North American hours for the most part. So in other words, long story short, I'll do small trips to Asia or Europe, only for like 2 weeks, maybe a month max, but nothing long term.
Okay. I mean, I'm sure that what you're going through, a lot of people are going through, especially as more people get on the road and start with remote work. So it's really good to hear like a day in the life of someone going through this.
Yeah.
And I hope that in the future there is some flexibility, but let's see what happens. But congratulations also on the promotion. So let's see where that takes
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So what were you worried about when you first started as a nomad? And did your worries play out in reality?
Yeah. Oh gosh.
That's a big question, I know.
There's there's a lot, yeah, to unpack there. Number one is, well, safety. I'll be honest. I actually avoided Mexico City for 10 years because I just thought as soon as I land in Mexico City, I'd be robbed or there'd be some cartel fight that'd be caught up in the crossfire. That's the kind of head trash I had. Fast forward to January of this year, I went to Nomad Base and went to Mexico City as well, and it was a 180 from what I thought. So uh, the head trash I went into this nomad world was, oh my God, every Latin America where I had planned to spend most of my year uh, was going to be dangerous. There's going to be fights. I'm going to get robbed. All these stupid ideas because of the media or what have you. And then you get to Mexico City or El Salvador, where I spent 6 weeks, or Colombia. I couldn't have been more wrong. I think the one biggest lesson learned in all of this is just that for every one bad guy that I think there is out there, there's 5 billion million good people, and the humanity and the warmth, the love of when you get to a new city, that is overwhelming, not the negative violence, that kind of crap. So it was a wonderful lesson learned, if you will, this year. And so, yeah, so that was one. It's just a safety factor. Two was I was a bit anxious about the Airbnbs because, what you see on a nice curated Airbnb website is not necessarily what you get in reality. So I did fear having a lot of churn in accommodations, and that did happen. Playa del Carmen, I had a couple Airbnbs that were just garbage, for lack of a better term, where you could hear conversations next door, cockroaches, things like that. Just like, dude, this is not fun. So you just have to, you're a nomad, so you just pick up and you adapt and you find a new place. And then the third one, I think that's another kind of that comes to mind is just the loneliness factor, because I knew that I would be in new cities I'd never been, and I don't speak Spanish very well. And I wish I could say that I did now after 9 months in Latin America, but no, I can just get by with the basics. Um, so loneliness was a concern, and that has happened. I have gone through bouts of just kind of waking up alone, going to brunch alone, spending the day in my little Airbnb office alone, working, right? And then at night, going out for a walk, having dinner alone, and then going to bed, rinse and repeat, right? But I've learned that WhatsApp is a great tool to keep in touch with family and friends and do the video chats. So that's been helpful to kind of overcome the loneliness. And then, Matt Bowles, one of my favorite nomads, and my roommate, the first part of this year, he helped in kind of giving me some tips like, hey, you might want to try Tinder, and you might want to try, if not for romantic reasons, but Tinder is a good tool to meet a local. And even if I don't have the intention or desire to have a romantic kind of thing with that person, you establish upfront that you're looking for friendship and you have a great travel companion, and or a local buddy to show you around. So that's helped. In fact, when I was in Colombia, yeah, of course, Matt was my roommate for a while. And then, Santiago Sosa and Vicky, who I love and adore, they were in Colombia with us. And so I kind of got off easy in the beginning because they introduced me to their friends and their family and got to meet Santiago's brother and his wonderful sister-in-law and their kids. And so that was a great little social network. And then through them, I met this wonderful girl named Carolina who showed me around Colombia. And even over here in La Paz, for example, I met a girl on Tinder. Her name is Gabby. She's a diplomat, awesome, awesome gal, and she's taking me ice climbing tomorrow. So yeah, I mean, there is loneliness, but then there's also bouts of excitement and cool people. So it balances out.
I think it's actually a really good thing that you brought up Tinder because most people do forget about the friend aspect, and it is one of those apps that is all over the world and used quite widely by people in each place. So it's a great place to find as long as you're upfront, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, and to take that a bit further, it really is what you make of it, right? And if you level set and you set the right expectation up front, it doesn't have to have that connotation of being some sleazy hookup app. It's not. It's what you make of it. It's how you approach it, how the other party approaches it. So it's been very helpful.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you've made those connections. I know that you were actually attending some Nomad events and Nomad conferences before you actually became a Nomad. And when I met you at one of those Nomad events, Nomad Cruise 10, I was really struck by that. I thought you are studying this process very closely before you get in. Was there anything that you learned about the lifestyle when you actually started that you hadn't learned just kind of looking in at the nomads at these events?
Yeah, that's a good question. So after having done Nomad Cruise 7, Nomad Cruise number 10, even Nomad Train, which is my first foray into the Nomad world back in 2018, those were really nicely packaged, curated experiences where I just like took 2 weeks off of work as a vacation and went and enjoyed this experience where I didn't have to stress about lodging or any of the logistics of being a nomad. And then when I officially became a nomad and went to Nomad Base, one of our mutual friends, Gustav, I don't know if you remember him, Anderson, great guy. He
Yes.
made a comment at Nomad Base that stuck with me that actually rang true, which is decision fatigue. He was telling me, look, Muj, I've been doing this nomad thing for many years, but I'm kind of taking, I'm throttling back, if you will, because of decision fatigue. Because when you're on your nomad journey, you're looking for a new city to visit, new Airbnb accommodations or what have you. You're booking flight tickets or optimal this, what dates to go. You start making a lot of micro decisions, and a lot of them. And so over time, I started getting decision fatigue, and I'm only just barely a year into my journey, and I'm already kind of feeling tired about, okay, next, in a month I'm going to Lima. I got to figure out what flights what are the optimum flights to fit my work schedule and to get there in time, right? Do I take a plane or do I take a bus? what are the hours? What are the, it's if I went on a Friday afternoon, it costs $400 versus Saturday, it'll cost 200. All these little things you start having to digest over and over again. So it's flights, accommodations, is the Wi-Fi good, the food. You're always having to reset and start over. And all the thought and decisions that go into all these little micro moves kind of start to add up. So I am feeling decision fatigue, and I'm not looking forward to actually having to pick up from here in La Paz and go to my next city, which is another lesson learned is I had set up in my mind this idea that I want to do a country a month. But that was a bit short-sighted. I think looking back, if I were to redo it, I would have said, no, I'm going to do 2 or 3 months in each city before making the change. And all these things kind of I'm learning as I go, but it was Gustav at Nomad Base that really kind of set the thesis for the year, which is, yeah, decision fatigue is a real thing. It could happen to you, and it has.
Yeah, I could probably imagine too with all the COVID restrictions earlier in the year. That was another thing. It's like, oh, now I have to add these extra steps to moving as well. So
Yeah.
you've figured out why many of us become what we call slow mads after even a year of traveling.
That's funny. Yep. I think I'll be a slow mad next after this.
Yeah, but it's nice to get into those routines. Have you done anything to combat the decision fatigue? For example, pulling a Steve Jobs and wearing the same clothes every day, same outfit?
Yes. Yes. In fact, taking the page from Matt's playbook, Matt Bowles again, he taught me a lot when we were
He's going to
living
be on the
together.
show, by the way, everybody. We're going to get Matt on the show hopefully next month.
He is
Yes.
he is a wealth of knowledge, and some of the things that he inculcated to me is the virtue of traveling light, just to carry on. In the beginning, I'd be traveling with a giant suitcase, and while he'd breeze through check-in and security and be sitting at the Capital One Priority Pass lounge, I'd still be stuck at check-in with my giant luggage, waiting to check in my luggage, and he's already sitting pretty. And I almost missed, I don't know, maybe 5 flights because in Latin America, things aren't as sometimes as efficient. They're a little slower. And I would get to security line or the check-in line, and I would get to the counter just in time to rush to my gate board the aircraft. So travel light, which means, I have a couple of black wool t-shirts that Matt urged me to get, which, have that antibacterial, antimicrobial properties where you can wear it for like a week and don't have to wash it, doesn't smell, doesn't. So I have a couple of those shirts. I wear the same thing, like the same 2 or 3 polos every day for work, and then just wash them on the weekends. So yeah, travel light and do the Steve Jobs thing. It's definitely a very helpful hack.
Yeah, I also like to make a lot of the same things for breakfast. Like I'll even make the same breakfast the whole week because once I get to a new grocery store, okay, you find out where the eggs are, for example, and you just, you know what you're going to do in the morning and you can get started and feel more at home because it's your routine
Yep.
is going with you everywhere. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And in fact, here in La Paz, this is a shout out to the Carrot Tree, which is a awesome breakfast, lunch, or dinner spot. So if any of your listeners ever come to La Paz, there's 2 carrot trees, one in the Witches Market area, one kind of maybe about 2 miles away. The best burgers, the best pizza, and their brunch for 38 Bolivian pesos. You get scrambled eggs, pancakes, fresh cut fruit, orange juice, and coffee, which I think, what is that? It's about $6 or $5. So that's my daily go-to.
Amazing.
It's great.
Well, we're already on the subject actually, but I wanted to ask you what tips and tricks you have learned over this year that has improved your life as a nomad besides packing light and cutting down
Yeah.
that decision fatigue.
Yeah, no, I think, well, that's pretty much the 2 major ones. Another one that, Mr. Matt Bowles got me onto was he got me turned on to the Capital One Venture X credit card. Not sure how many of your listeners may have that or heard of it, but it's a great card that actually pays you to travel. And when I got the credit card, it gives you access to the priority lounges. So at every airport now, I try to go a lot earlier, even though I'm traveling light, just so I can sit and hang out at the lounge and get on the Wi-Fi and eat the free food and just comfortably travel, not always be on the, in a rush or on the go. So that's yeah, so aside from that, traveling light, avoiding, paying for check-in fees and sitting in check-in lines. Um, yeah, those are some of the tricks I've learned. Um, and as far as tips go, like, I mean, if I were to sum up this whole journey, and I know you might get to another question about, what is some advice to give somebody who's going to embark on this nomad journey? Like, I think the number one overarching theme is you just got to go do it because you never know what you're going to learn, who you're going to meet. And I feel like you could spend all your time rationalizing why you shouldn't become a nomad, right? And I think that everyone can just become a nomad. It's not a one-way street where once you make the decision, you can't go back. And I feel like I would have lived in a world of regret had I not taken the plunge and not gone nomadic and just said, what if for my whole life, which would have sucked, versus just saying, you know what, I'm going to go be a nomad. I'll try it for a year or 6 months or whatever. It's not a life sentence. And if things don't work out, things don't flow, things don't just make sense or whatever, or the draw to be back home is strong, then go back home. And it's fine. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's beautiful words. And I know that you are not going to regret this year. I'm sure that you already think that despite things being different than you thought, it's in some cases you're out there living and you're getting to choose where you get to go next.
Yep, yep. In fact, it's funny you mentioned that, if I may. So, because I'm alone and far away from family and friends, I do rely on WhatsApp and even Instagram to kind of keep tabs on my network back home. And it's funny because the irony of it is, I look at their Instagram stories about their trip to Yosemite or Big Bear or Lake Tahoe or whatever, Burning Man, right? And I'm like, wow, they're having a good time in my own backyard. And so I've realized that I don't have to be an international nomad. I could be a domestic nomad and see my own backyard, see parts of California I've never seen or other parts of the US and be closer to home. So yeah, there's that too. No one said that the nomad lifestyle has to mean that you're across an ocean. You could be a nomad in your own backyard.
Yeah,
So
we're
yeah,
fortunate to both be from a country that is so huge and has so much to offer that I'm sure we haven't seen all of. So yeah, to have
yeah,
that chance just to roam, even just to go down the street instead of go to the office. That's what I really think the
exactly.
nomadic lifestyle is about. And you're right, it doesn't have to be nomadic very far. It can be nomadic down the road. At least you moved there.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
I want to go back to meeting people for a moment. So we talked about Tinder. Have you found
Yeah.
any other ways that are working for you consistently to meet people? For example, I know meetup.com or the Meetup app is another one in a lot of cities.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I went to a few language exchanges, which I never knew was even a thing. But I did go on Facebook and just Google like, Medellin activities or Medellin meetups. And that's where I came across Medellin Language Exchange. And I went to a couple and it was great. It's a bit intimidating when you walk into this giant like hall or restaurant and there's tables full of people speaking, and it's like, oh, it's a lot of people here. But once you find a table, they welcome you in, you sit down, you have a drink, and next thing you know, you're speaking, well, in my case, you're learning Spanish curse words. Either way, you're enjoying a nice exchange and you make friends. And I've made a couple of friends that I actually plan to see in Argentina later on this year from those language exchanges. So that's been the only other, besides uh, that, I've actually made it a point to kind of go to the same restaurants a lot. And then I get to meet or get to know the waiter, the waitresses, the manager, the owner, and they've become my little network. So here, for example, in La Paz, the Carrot Tree, the manager, Johnny, shout out to Johnny, you're awesome. The guy is just the best host, and he is my local, like my rock here. So if anything happens to me, if I get hurt or anything sick, I just call Johnny. He take care of me, and he just has great food at his restaurant. So that's
So
that's my
cool. That is fantastic.
yeah.
And I think you're pointing to something that a lot of us as Americans don't get to experience, especially someone from Los Angeles or a very like a city with a lot of cars. If you
Yeah.
live in a walkable city, like I know a lot of Europeans may have had more of a chance to do that. That is a way that every day they have community, but we're like, wait, I can make friends with a cafe owner and it feels like
Yeah.
family. It's so different. We can walk around or get to these places easier uh as a nomad.
And also to add to that, the pace of life in Latin America is just slower, which affords itself to, you can like I can walk for 20 minutes to go get brunch and along the way just chat up people because there's so much warmth, it's such a chill environment, and everyone is out and about. It's like it's almost you have to almost try not to talk to people or try to just stay in some sort of tunnel. If that's it's hard not to meet people here, actually.
Yeah, that's really great too.
Well,
It's oh, go ahead. Yes.
I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's hard not to just bump into people and meet people, but you do have to still make an effort to develop rapport, and sometimes you have to go over and over again for that trust and that rapport to be built. But yeah, in terms of just meeting people, these crowded cities like La Paz or Medellin or what have you, there are people everywhere walking around. So you have to really try hard to avoid interaction. So that's the nice part about this part of the world. Whereas, as you know, in LA, we don't really walk much. You're usually in your car in traffic, and your blood pressure is high, and you're not really looking to give niceties to the person next to you in their car. You're more about to give the finger, if anything, right? So it's a very different dynamic.
Also, if you'd been in a colder place, like let's say Scandinavia, and everybody's inside, nobody wants to go out and meet you. It would be much harder, I think, to bump into people. So I think you've chosen a good
Yeah,
spot to keep
yeah,
developing these like social habits as a nomad. So,
yeah. Thanks.
well, I have to ask, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but how long do you envision that you will continue to live this lifestyle?
Yeah, oh gosh, that's a good one. I won't lie to you. Some days I wake up thinking this nomad life is for me. I'm going to do it indefinitely. Other days I wake up thinking, man, I miss my parents, because my dad had a little heart scare a couple weeks ago, and I felt helpless all the way in Bolivia, not being able to be there for my mom or take care of my dad. So there's little like reminders that, hey, you've got parents at home who are getting older. You've got friends and family who are having kids, getting married, and you're missing out on these amazing life milestones because I'm way out here. I forgot to mention that I'm doing this nomad year at minimum a year because I want to leverage that foreign earned income tax exclusion that Americans are afforded if you spend 330 days or more outside the US. So I'm trying to leverage that, and I want to get a nice refund at the end of the year. So I can't go home because I've already kind of eaten up my 30 odd days that I'm allowed to be in the US. So that's a bit of a handcuff, if you will. So, so because this year I'm forced to be outside the U.S. if I want to really leverage that tax provision, it's made me realize how much of a luxury it is to be able to go back home whenever I want for as long as I want. So that has actually made me think, maybe it's not this whole FEIE or foreign earned income tax thing. It's great to try for a year. I don't know if I have it in me to do it again next year because you are limited to how many days you can go home. And so I have to pick and choose. Okay, I'll go to his wedding, but I won't go to her wedding, or that kind of thing, because you only get 30 days in America. So all that to say, I think deep down the nomad life is sexy to me, and it would be something. It's always going to be an option, but I am kind of an old school family guy, and I'm also a pilot, and I do miss flying, and I've gone a year without sitting in an airplane at the controls, and I feel like if I were to be put in a plane tomorrow, I wouldn't know how to start the damn thing. So there's also that fear of kind of getting rusty. So I do miss some of my hobbies that are location dependent kind of. And so I think next year I might throttle back on the international nomadism and kind of do a bit more of the domestic stuff and be closer to family. And I do want to get married. It's something it's number one on my list of priorities, to be frank. And I feel like I'm not helping my cause by hopping from Bolivia to Lima to Argentina and kind of doing this. I kind of want to be in one place for a little bit long to cultivate something long term. So there's that too.
I've actually known other nomads that did the very same thing. As Americans, again, we have this special case with the taxes. We have more of the
Mhm.
handcuffs, like you said. So we do have to think about it. But like we've said, you're never going to regret this time that you're spending, and you can always travel with the job that you have. But you could be based in the U.S. and pay
Yeah.
more taxes, or pay the taxes you need to pay there. But it's what's important to you, and it's continuing to explore and try things out, and then also hopefully find a marriage partner that you're looking for. So
I hope she's out there somewhere. Let's see.
I wasn't going to ask
Yeah.
that directly because you had mentioned it in our conversation on my podcast, episode 66. But yeah, like you have told me, so I can see that you're looking, you're traveling, like you said, and it is difficult. It can be very difficult when you're moving around to make these deeper
Yeah.
connections with people to start working towards marriage. So
Yeah. You know what's ironic is when I was living in LA, I was like on Bumble or Hinge or what have you, and also leveraging my social network to meet a great girl, and it just wasn't jiving, right? As soon as I get to Mexico and El Salvador, all of a sudden I start matching with girls in LA. It's like, really? Like, I swear I'm cursed. It's just, I don't know what's going on, but anyway,
yeah, but
I
in this
digress. But
case,
that's,
keep talking. You
yeah,
never know what might happen if you're really connecting with somebody. You've already said
I
I might
know.
go back to LA. So okay, this
Yeah,
is now
yeah,
dating
no,
advice. The end of this is dating advice. All right. So
oh boy. Yeah,
well,
if you know anybody
thank
with love
you.
standards and poor vision, send them my way.
Who is looking for a pilot to fly them around the US? I will send them your way, Moj.
Please, please.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Rouge, for being so open about this last year that you've had. I think you are the first person we've had that is just has been able to tell us like on the road in their first year how it's been going. So really interesting feedback. And if people want to follow you and your journey, where can they go?
Yeah, sure. I'm on LinkedIn, Mujtaba Saifuddin. It's a mouthful, but I'm sure my name is somewhere on the website there. So, and then also Instagram. I'm at where did Muj go? That's where did MUJ go? Fitting, I guess. And
I like it.
Facebook, Mujtaba Saifuddin. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to go and follow your journey as long as it lasts. And I hope that you get to see your family soon as well. And keep enjoying La Paz.
Thank you. Great country or great city. Bolivia is amazing. You guys got to come visit. All
I
right. Thanks,
second
Declan.
that. Thank you, Amuj.
Thank
Bye.
you.